Yeah.
You're all set.
Okay. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 18th Public Safety Committee meeting. We do not have an agenda today for the Office of Emergency Services. We'll move right into the Sheriff's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the prior committee meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion put forward by Supervisor
Frazier.
Frazier. And there's a second. Second by Supervisor Shuffler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move into the action agenda. Item 1, a request to amend the county budget reflecting the appropriate revenue and expense code for the first half of 2021-2022 school resource officer. Okay.
Yes, this is just our typical biannual request to assign the appropriations and expense codes for each of our schools. Half the year.
Is there a motion to bring this to the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Shuffler. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, approval to exceed the approved 2020-21 Queensbury Union Free School District Resource Officer Agreement amount of $87,000 by $11,667.79. The motion to bring that to the floor.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Kepler. Any discussion? Supervisor
Thank you.
Kepler?
Wasn't this already covered in one?
Number 1 is all of the schools for the 2021-2022 school year. So for the first half, this relates to the previous school year. What happened with Queensbury Union Free School District is at the end of the 2020 school year, one of the part-time officers who was working there retired, moved south. So we were short one part-time officer. They were really eager to get a second part-time officer. We couldn't find anyone to fill that vacancy. We filled it with a full-time. By November 30th of the school year, the other part-time officer, so there was a full-time and a part-time working for a very short period of time. The other part-time officer was separated, leaving us just with the full-time officer. Having that part-time with full-time for that short period of time caused us to go over slightly. We're confident that that will not occur in this school year.
Thank you. Is there an intent to fill the part-time position, or do you just want to maintain it at a one full-time?
Queensbury is really pleased with the full-time officer that they have. They're satisfied with just one officer, with him in their school district, doing an exceptional job. And as long as they're happy, we're happy, and we're able to stay within their budget.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, request to transfer funds within the Sheriff's Office budget to address excessive expenditures in the Queensbury Union Free School District Resource Officer Code. Motion to bring that to the floor. Motion made by Supervisor Shuffler,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by Supervisor Frazier.
Chairman. May I ask a question? You may have covered this already, Sheriff. Did Queensbury reimburse us for the overage?
They did not. So what happened is at the end of the 2020 school year, one of the 2 part-time officers declined to come back for the following school year, moved to Florida. Left us short one part-time officer. We continued to seek. They wanted to have a second officer in their school district. We left the one part-time, assigned a full-time officer. By November 30th of the school year, the other part-time officer was separated, leaving us with the one full-time officer. Because we carried a full-time with a part-time, it caused us to go over slightly for that school year. They are very pleased with the full-time officer that they have working in their school district. The reimbursement that we have established with them for this year, we will not go over. This was an unexpected expenditure.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, item 4, amend the county budget to provide the record of 2020 school resource officer salary, and brings benefit expenditures for the Queensbury Union Free School District in the Johnford Central School District. Motion to bring that to the floor.
I'll bring it to the floor.
Motion put on the floor by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by
I'll second the motion.
Supervisor Brady. Discussion. Motion to approve.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is enter an agreement with New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services to establish an escrow account for civil fingerprinting process. Is there a motion to bring this to the floor? Motion put forward by Supervisor Scheffler, seconded by Supervisor Kramer. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion items. The first item on the agenda is discussion about the non-bargaining unit employees 2022 salary requests. The reason why that's on the agenda today is that when we're reviewing the budgeting or the tentative budget proposals, we didn't get into the details of the non-union employees' requests. So I asked the sheriff to come here today and explain to us which employees that are not in part of the bargaining unit, what their increases are being proposed in the 2020 budget.
We are non-bargaining unit employees with this calendar year. There were no salary increases. There was a hold or a freeze on all increases for the non-bargaining unit employees. For this year, this was the first time I was asked to participate in this, but we had an evaluation process. Our non-bargaining unit employees were evaluated. All have performed over a 2-year period that I've been sheriff exceptionally well. We have our undersheriff, a captain in corrections, and a system maintenance coordinator. The undersheriff, the county in 2019, December 2019, you established through personnel and finance a pay scale, and it establishes a grade as well as an increment for their years of service. So for the undersheriff, the salary that was proposed without any merit increases or taking anything into consideration relating to COLA, the performance evaluation that was completed, we simply used the grade, which for that position is a grade 20 with a 30-year increment. So the request lands exactly into that matrix under the 30th year increment, $114,514. And again, this was a salary that was established in 2019. So that's the one we're still working off from. I don't believe there's been any adjustments over a 2-year period, and that is absent any merit or COLA increases. For the captain, the grade for that position is a grade 17, and the request was for the 20th year salary being $90,629. For the system maintenance coordinator, that is a grade 12 position at the 10th year increment. We were permitted, according to this matrix, to request $63,836. I submitted a request to increase the increment from grade 12 to grade 14. Mark Neal is an employee that we value greatly in our Warren County Sheriff's Office. His knowledge, his experience, his commitment takes him well beyond, it's easy for me to say, well beyond a grade 12. I don't know how high you would take him, but we thought that this was an appropriate request to bring him to grade 14 at the 10th year increment to increase to $71,726. Those are the only 3 non-bargaining unit employees that we submitted evaluations and submitted requests on. I know that when we go through our budget workshops, we are not permitted to do anything with salaries. Everything comes out of the treasurer's office. So I made these submissions to the county administrator and to the budget officer through the evaluation process.
Sheriff, may I ask a question on Mr. Neal? How much of a percentage of increase is that in his salary from current now?
I didn't come with that. I don't know the percentage increase. Again, I just tried to work off the matrix that you have established and increasing it from the 2 grades, taking it to or keeping it at the 10th eligible increment. So it went from 61,977, and the request is for 71,726.
So it's approximately $10,000
I
increase.
think it's just under $10,000 increase.
How does that compare to the members of the bargaining unit?
Well, if you took a 2-year salary increase, it would likely be more. I didn't do the math. But again, I look at that and I see an employee like Mark Neal, and he was being undercompensated, overutilized. When we have projects like a commander or a camera switch in our facility, this little bit of an increase that we're providing to him, he saves the county tenfold in his management and oversight in these projects. He's an expert. He's an expert in so many fields. I know Supervisor Thomas has felt it personally out in Stony Creek with tower projects. And, you know, again, this isn't a time when I've said this to all of you on more than one occasion. I can't do anything to show them appreciation other than say thank you. So when we make a request to this, it's my ask of you to show your appreciation for his efforts, hard work, dedication to Warren County. He is an employee. We have all of our employees that are very committed, care about them all, but he is an employee that we cannot afford to lose. Yes.
Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, so the total, do you have a total amount of what you're asking all these salaries add up to put into the budget, so we can discuss that with our budget officer?
The increases?
Well, yeah, the total of all the increases.
I'm not standing here before you to do the math, but I'm sure it's something we could very easily do. You know, and the only thing that I would ask of you is when we look at these increases, don't forget there were no increases for 2020. What I'm asking for, I really assume that we would make this ask. My ask is the baseline according to your matrix. You go down and then go over to the right. And these are the minimum numbers that are provided in the matrix from 2019. I wholeheartedly anticipated that with these 3 employees, that there would be this baseline. And then on top of that, through the evaluation process, there might be merit increases, merit compensation, COLA, additionals on top of that. But this is something that we absolutely could provide to you. The only thing that I would caution you with is the undersheriff's position. It's been explained to me that we're asking for a $70,000+ increase in the undersheriff's salary, and that's just not the case. Salary for the undersheriff in 2020 was budgeted at $107,941. And if you would have just simply issued 2% or 3% increases over the 2-year period, the number that we're asking for is exactly the number that he would be at with the 3% increase over 2 years. To think that the salary for a qualified 30-year undersheriff in the Warren County Sheriff's Office is commensurate to be $35,000 is offensive. You know, I think if people are looking at that and seeing that as a salary increase, you're looking at it through the wrong lens. To be compensating a rock star like Terry Cuomo at $35,000 is a deeply discounted employee for Warren County. So I would only ask you, if you're asking me to compute the difference there, don't ask me to compute from $35,000.
Can I follow through? Sure, thank you. That's not where I was going.
Okay.
In my opinion, all right, I wholeheartedly believe that we should be compensating our employees, because I have found really across the whole board, you know, to keep our good people and to keep the faith. I agree that we need to do that. Unfortunately, we do this for you, and it's a snowball effect. So, you know, to keep it all fair, that, you know, everybody, well, I deserve. I'm not saying your guys don't deserve it. And on for Terry's, I believe that there was a retirement package that he had that was the reason, but he wants to come off of that. I wholeheartedly stand behind him, because I really, it's a great team you guys got over there. So, and I happen to work with a good group of them at the balloon festival. So I'm happy. I know you were up north a little bit more. You had the motorcycles, but so no, I'm not questioning that. I just wanted to make sure that you know, a figure for the budget officer, and maybe get his you know, his feel on it too.
If I
Not
could
that I'm
just,
putting Frank under. any
No,
position.
and if I could respond, I put a lot of thought into everything that I do, and my request was very purposeful. You know, I think that I appreciate that you have to work with all the other departments. It's not my concern, but I'm appreciative of that. So the request that we submitted, we're using your pay scale, using the base level for that pay scale with 2 out of the 3 employees, not requesting a nickel over that. So if any had any issues, I mean, the easiest response is we have an employee that's been graded by the county to be a grade 20 or grade 17, and this is their step, and they've been exceptional employees, and the sheriff asked for exactly what we authorized in 2019 to be at that step. For Mark Neal, we're asking for the same increment for his time in service. We're just looking to bump him up a couple of grades because we recognize as an administration, he's been undergraded by the county. I know the process allows for a review of the grades to determine, sometimes they may go up. If we have an employee separate and we bring somebody in that's new with not as much experience, sometimes they will go down. For us, this is a request. We requested it to you. I can't explain, what you'll do with other departments or how you'll explain that to them, but ours, I think, was reasonable, kind of low and fair.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Garrett.
I can't speak to all these requests, but I can speak to Mark Neal's value to the county. I've known him a long time when he worked for Northway Exchange on South Street in Glens Falls. He is so invaluable to the county. He took over a lot of the radio duties before that were shared with other people, but he certainly is worth every penny that we pay him. I do believe he deserves an increase in grades. It's technologically, he's on top of everything. He could tell you, he keeps up on all the technological advances. I just think he's probably worth more than moving him up two positions, but I would advocate for Mark. Mark is a terrific person. You can bounce things off him anytime, and he's always there to help you. And like I said, I'm not aware of the other salary increases, but I can tell you Mark Neal is worth every penny that we offer him, and I certainly will advocate for him to get his increase. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepler.
Thank you. How close are any of these candidates to retirement?
Hopefully they're going to last for another 10 years. That's a question that's very sensitive, and especially in law enforcement. Terry and I are arm in arm every day, and I would never ask him that question. Every day that he shows up for me is a good day. Our captain, very much the same way. He has 25 years of experience working in Warren County as a correctional facility officer, supervisor, administrator, and leader. And, you never know what life is going to bring you. All of them have plans to stay with us for some time, but you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So it's really, these 3, it's hard to state.
Sheriff, I'd just like to discuss a little bit more about the undersheriff salary that you're asking for an increase. The undersheriff took this position at $35,000 a year, knowing that was going to be the salary. And any way you look at this, you go from 35,000 to 114,000. You can't ignore the fact that it's an $89,000 a year increase. No matter how you talk about it, how you want to phrase it, it's still $89,000. To me, to ask to support an increase of $89,000 in 1 year is something that I cannot do. I could agree with or understand cost of living raise, but sending a message to the rest of the employees within the county and saying his value is now 114,000, knowing that he took the job for 35,000, I don't think that's a good message to say. So I'm not speaking on behalf of this committee. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, that I think increasing his salary by $89,000 something I could not support now or could not support at the full board meeting. I'd be more than happy to support a cost of living raise or something to that effect in regards to this. When I got elected mayor in the city of Glens Falls, I served 9.5 years. I knew exactly what the salary was at that time when I took that position. And I never, at that point in time, going forward, asked council or anybody else to increase my salary, knowing my responsibilities and what the salary was. So I'm having difficulty supporting that position. I just thought I'd let you know that.
May I respond?
Sure.
I don't know if it's misinformation, but some of what you just shared isn't completely accurate. And you shared with me that I'll get into a little bit of a personal level, that I ran on a campaign with a running mate, which I didn't run with any running mate. I ran as Jim LaFar, sharing that we were going to have a salary of $35,000. And that is wholeheartedly untruthful. If somebody's made that statement to you, that's completely inaccurate. The adopted 2020 budget, not the department request, not the budget officer's recommendations, not the tentative budget, but the adopted budget for the position of undersheriff was $107,941, not $35,000. Terry Cuomo is not going to be undersheriff in the Warren County Sheriff's Office forever. And if my health is willing and the county sees fit to reelect me, I am confident that I will serve beyond his years of service. At some point, we are going to have to make a decision to have the salary of the undersheriff be the undersheriff's salary. And I assume that it would be best to do this through the budget process, as we're doing now, not to have to try to find the money mid-year if Terry leaves in January when we're not budgeting for it. Now is the time to prepare. I know the county is positioned very well financially this year. And again, I'm just going to say to you, if you could take any employee in Warren County, not just the Warren County Sheriff's Office, and identify them as a 2-year MVP, it's Terry Cuomo. And we're all sitting here debating over his worth and indicating that he's worth about $35,000 plus a COLA. And I'm going to tell you that's really offensive. It's offensive to me. It should be offensive to everybody in Warren County. If he's not MVP, he's sure on the all-star team, without a doubt. He's first one in, last one out. The 2020 budget had a choice for him due to retirement specifications was budgeted at $35,000. We didn't make that request. He could have left at any time throughout this year. You never know what's going to happen. I would have thought that you'd want to budget it to be at least 107, knowing that he could leave mid-year. I would have to find somebody. The first 3 people that I'm going to look towards are my sheriff's office administrators who are all making 6 figures. There's not one of them that's going to step in and want to serve as undersheriff for $35,000. Now is the best time to prepare. Take Terry Cuomo out of the mix and look at it now just employees, personnel, and positions. Now is the time to prepare to get the salary that's commensurate for the position of undersheriff. And according to your matrix, for a 30-year employee at a grade 20, the salary that's appropriate is $114,000 and change. If you can't get behind it, you can't get behind it. But if you don't get behind it, you're not doing the right thing, period.
Sheriff, let me ask you the question. You said his salary was budgeted at $114,000. Why, or excuse me, 100 and what was it? 111,000?
$107,941.
So how did we end up at 35,000?
Because
He was
again,
willing to-
I really don't want to get too much. We're in a public meeting. I don't want to get too much into our undersheriff's personal business. But with retirement, sometimes there are limitations that an employee can make a determination as to which several directions they can go as far as compensation. What I have said as the leader for Terry Cuomo is what I would suggest to you is you do what is most beneficial for you and your family. And you continue to do that as long as you work here. If he's made a determination that now is the time to shift, we should just allow him to shift. And again, be thankful that Warren County has had the highest deeply discounted employee for 2 years, not view it as an increase of $80,000+, but view it as 2 years of a savings of over $70,000 for this exceptional employee, and thank him for doing that, period. If you don't do this, it's just wrong. The salary is what it is. It's what it should be. It's based upon your standards. I don't view it as a salary increase. I view it as a salary assignment.
Any other comments? Administrator Moore, would you like to talk about the matrix?
Sure. I'm just trying to refresh my own memory, and I was just looking back at the 2020 adopted budget, which is the adopted budget for that salary line. As the sheriff indicated, it was 107,941, and I was trying to refresh in my mind why that was the case, and why. And to your question, Mr. Chairman, why it that afterwards changed. And I know that when we do these budgets, it's prior to it would have been that year. The sheriff's election was in 2019, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we would have finalized the salaries prior to, because the budget is filed before the election. So the salary schedule would have been filed prior to the election. But I'd have to do some further research as to what that number represented and why it was in there. And I'd have to go through emails and things. It's back too far for me to fully recall it. But the salary structure that we put into place, that we ran through the personnel committee, it's based on the way we were doing it prior. Supervisors, multiple supervisors, department heads. A lot of people used to communicate that they thought that it was arbitrary, that there should be more science to it. So in 2019, we started off, we did it first with the attorneys, because the district attorney in particular was having trouble with retention. So we set up a grid for the attorneys. And then later on in the year in 2019, we set up a grid for the other non-union, non-attorney positions. And the logic behind it was we're going to establish a job grade for every position based on the job duties and the job qualifications. So I worked with the HR department and civil service, studying those job descriptions, looking at the way other counties had done it, and determining what we thought were appropriate job grades. And then we have the same way we do it with our unions. You have increments that the longer you stay at the county, each job grade has salaries that you can move out to. So if you're here, if you've had 5 years, you're at the 5th increment. When you achieve your 10th year, you go to the 10th increment. If you're in a union, you get those increments automatically. And when we discussed this in the context of non-union employees at the personnel committee back in 2019, the thought was that we wouldn't make it automatic for the non-union employees. We would have merit evaluations, which we do each year. I do them for the department heads with help from supervisors, and the department heads do them for their own employees. And if you have an insufficient merit evaluation where you're found, not to be performing sufficiently or performing at a higher level, then the thought was that you wouldn't recommend that someone moves up into that increment. Again, for the unions, it's automatic, but for the non-unions, we wanted to hold a merit standard to it. If the finding was that someone did deserve the merit increment, then the department head can recommend that. And you're limited to, you can't recommend someone all the way out in the 30th increment if they don't have 30 years of county service. You can get them as far out as their years of service would allow them to be. So that's what we settled upon. And it's not perfect, but we all thought it was an improvement over the way it was done. Puts a little more science to it as to why this person is getting this amount of pay, and why the department head recommends this level of pay for this employee next year. So that was sort of the logic of what we did. And it's meant to be a guiding principle to the Board of Supervisors when we're having these budgetary discussions and settling on what's in the budget. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Any other
That's right.
questions that we have for the sheriff about these discussion items?
That was the long version.
Supervisor
Just
Garrity.
real quick, so the money was budgeted in 2020 for a certain amount, and the person decides to come in at a lesser amount, the money falls to fund balance, or where did the extra money go, Ryan? If you didn't spend it, it would go to fund balance, or?
Well, it may have been transferred into other codes within the sheriff's office. We typically have, particularly in with the radio systems and the equipment that we have, there can sometimes be costs that are not foreseen. So it could have been transferred out. But if it wasn't transferred out and it wasn't spent, then it would have fallen into fund balance.
Okay.
I know we were doing a lot with budget austerity in 2020 due to COVID, so we returned quite a bit.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff. We'll move on with our agenda as there isn't any referral pending items.
We have 2 more discussion items, Supervisor Diamond.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Approve the, okay, we're going to discuss the fact that it's about the investigative positions.
Yes. On paper, we had it, we had this as actually action items, and we moved them down to discussion items just to clarify, and hopefully we'll be able to take action soon. On paper, it appears as though we're requesting 2 additional positions in our table of organization in the sheriff's office, and that's not completely correct. We have an investigative sergeant currently who oversees our criminal investigations office, and only one. So the title in our table of organization is investigative sergeant. In order to have, we'd like to have a second investigative sergeant. So in order to have that, we have to just reclassify the investigative sergeant to become investigative sergeant number 1. So we're removing investigative sergeant from our table of organization. I'm asking for a new position, investigative sergeant number 1, but it's not a new position. Same person, just a different number in HR. The second, we have our narcotics enforcement unit, who the unit was supervised by a sergeant in years past. The sergeant retired, and we did not, in the prior administration, never filled that vacancy. The failure to fill that vacancy, we have a coordinator, and the coordinator is carrying supervisory functions, managing the unit from time to supervisory functions from time to time, really managing in the unit and overseeing narcotics drug operations. We need to have a supervisor with this very specialized group. We have a member in there who has the title of investigator, investigator number 3. What we'd like to do is on our table of organization, vacate investigator number 3, defund it, and create the position investigative sergeant number 2. So essentially, if Jim LaFar is investigator right now, serving as a coordinator in the narcotics enforcement unit, I would have a change in my title, a promotion based upon a civil service examination from investigator to investigative sergeant number 2. The only impact on our budget would be an increase of $1,000 for the entire year, which we could absorb through budget transfers. This is something we would like to do sooner than later. We would hope that we would not have to wait until subsequent board meetings, November meetings. It's something that we need. So I don't know what the process would be if it continues through discussion and moves on to the next committee meeting, or how that would work.
Any questions for the sheriff?
Makes sense.
Okay. We can either take action today, or we can move it on to the next committee meeting. I put that out there to my colleagues on the committee and see what they'd like to do.
I don't have a problem moving it forward today. if we're
Neither do
allowed
I.
to.
Neither do I.
So Amanda, what we need to do is just create a resolution to approve the creation and fill the investigators sergeant's number 1 position and 2.
Yep, you'll need a motion for that, and it's technically going to be a referral to the Personnel Committee.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve and to create, to fill the investigative sergeant number 1 and number 2 and move that on to the Personnel Committee?
Is that one motion or is it 2?
It can be one
The
motion.
one motion.
So moved.
I'll make that motion or
It was
second
a motion made by Supervisor Shepler, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. I'll call the question. All in favor?
it.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to that. There's no items for referral or pending items. So we'll move on to privilege of the floor. Is there anybody from the public or any members of the board here that would like to speak? Supervisor Stroud.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Jim, I haven't seen you, but I know it was quite a challenge with the Americade and Bloom Festival at the same time. And by all accounts that I'm hearing, you and your sheriff's department did an outstanding job. So I want to congratulate you and the department for, God bless you, getting up there and doing what's required. And I thought you did a great job.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I know that a lot of our members tune into these meetings, and for you to state that, they'll hear that and it will mean a great amount to them as well. Thank you.
I'll say an amen to that one. So thank you.
Any other comments from the privileged floor? If none, I'll put a motion forward to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Supervisor Frazier,
Second.
second by Supervisor McGowan. All in favor for adjournment?
Aye.